Episode 110 of the I Rock Knits podcast. My name is Cori Eichelberger and I go by I Rock Knits on the internet, and I am here today with my trusted companion Cody. He is asking for lots of extra attention right now, so I'm just going to get started even though he's panting because he saw a dog outside on the corner and he thinks he should go out there and make best friends. So we'll see if I can't get him to go under the table and lay down. Go lay down. Good boy. What am I wearing today? This is my Pinebank sweater knit by my dear friend Stacy. I had knit one and it was too small, so I gifted it to my mother's best friend, and then I bought the yarn to make another one, and I just was not motivated to do it, so I asked Stacy, who is a sample knitter, if she would knit it up for me, which she did. So now I have my own, even though I had not knit this one. But it's a lovely sweater. It's got 3/4 length sleeves. It has interfacing and little pops of color at the arms, at the hem, up the front button band. So it came out in a Malabrigo book. I think it was maybe book 10. The pattern is by Amy Micallef, probably Micallef. So secondly, don't adjust your monitors. There is a gray sweater in the Eichelberger Casa. It is gray. Don't panic. The apocalypse is not coming. But I do have up some Christmas decorations, so I'm going to start with a little bit of a Cori stories about that. I was concerned about being able to get up the decorations this year. As many of you know, I have hundreds of Santas. I have a huge Santa collection, and people gave me Santas for many, many, many years until finally I had to say, please, no more Santas. But I have a knitting Mrs. Claus here and here, and there's a knitting caroler right up there. If I tip this, you'll see her sitting in her chair. I have quite a few knitting themed different decorations. I do have a knitting Santa somewhere in the house. He's holding a ball of yarn. And then I have some right behind me on the shelf, but Ross and I did it yesterday. So a friend of a friend does some decorating for people with friends or helps, but doesn't really charge for it. And so I got put in touch with this woman, and so we set up a time, and she was going to come over and take a look at what we had and then come on Sunday and today actually and do the decorating. And she was diagnosed with breast cancer this week, which was super sad. And she still wanted to come, but then we talked and she decided that she has to have a port put in tomorrow. So let's say prayers for Deanne, who I have not even met. I have not met her in person, but she was going to come and help us out. But yesterday I said to Ross, well, we have to put up the tree. We are entertaining on Friday night my husband's work crew, the people that work for him, or his direct reports. I don't know. I don't understand office hierarchies. He doesn't really go by that anyway. So we're going to have a bunch of people here. So we really did need to get the tree up and get decorated. And we had put it off because we thought she was coming the weekend after Thanksgiving. We always do it the weekend of Thanksgiving. And it was a way bigger job than we should have taken on. And we didn't even get it all up. I have garland and greenery and more lights to put out, which I would love to do, but I am super sore today. My hip hurts and my shoulder hurts. And I didn't make too many trips to the basement, but there was a lot of, reaching and stretching and lifting and going to the basement and saying to Ross, this box, and this box, and not that box. But we did get a number of things. So it's looking a little more festive in here. We just took all the yarn off the shelves and dumped it into a box. I will regret that later. But I was like, yeah, we can just shove it in a box. And then when he came over to help, he's like, this is a lot of yarn. It didn't look like a lot in the cubbies, right? Like just on the 3 shelves, but it was a lot of yarn. So we took that down and we just kind of slid them into boxes, and there were multiples of some. I'm sure that got kind of mixed up, so I won't be happy when I go to put them back on the shelves. Maybe I'll do something else behind me for a while. I don't know, maybe I'll stack some sweaters out here. That would be easier. There'd be less of them. We'll have to see what I do with all that. But so some of the decorations are up. I will be having knitters over, and we'll see about other entertaining that we might do. But it was kind of a big job, you know, hauling up all that stuff. And then the more we got into it, the more my husband kept saying, oh, well, that's a really nice Santa. And I was like, yes. And then the first thing he said when we went to the basement is, oh, we're not bringing up this. And it's my yarn ball tree. And it's the one that I purchased a couple years ago. And it's just red and white yarn wrapped around probably tennis balls, I don't really know, and stuck on the outside of a tree. I'll put a picture in. And I'm like, that's the easiest thing. It doesn't weigh that much, because maybe it's not tennis balls, whatever. We just carried it up and set it in the corner. Like, that's super easy. So he was like, oh, okay. So we brought that up. But anyway, I hope all of you that celebrate Christmas have your decorations done and aren't feeling your age like I am. So one bit of information on the health front. I did go to see my shoulder surgeon. Don't think I told you guys this last time, but I might have. I didn't have it in my notes, but I am going to have a shoulder replacement on June 8th, and it is necessary. I have been putting it off because of the other surgeries that I have. I can't lift my arm above about right here without help. I have a bone spur arthritic calcification at the end of my collarbone. And I saw him in February of 2021. I thought it was 2022. And he said, schedule it on your way out. And I walked right by the scheduling desk and didn't schedule it. So I went back in because he said, we're going to have this conversation again in 6 months. I thought it had been 6 months. It had been a year and 6 months. And I'd been getting along because this one works great. So I'm using my left one, but I had my friend Bonnie say, you're going to overuse that left one and then you're going to have trouble with that one. And so I went back in and we discussed having it before the end of the year because my deductible has been met, but he had no availability because that's what everybody wants. And he's having surgery, so he's limited his surgical hours. He's having surgery after the first year and will be out for 3 months. So he was already booking into April. And I'm already scheduled to teach in April and May. So then I was like, well, how about June 1st? And he said, well, call and, you know, get on my schedule. I don't even know if we're booking out that far, but I called and she penciled me in. So I will be laid up next summer again. And like I'm okay with this, right? Like they can fix me every time. It's not a horrific diagnosis that some people are living with much worse chronic illness. It doesn't help my fibromyalgia when I have other body parts hurt. When you have fibromyalgia, they will tell you anything above a pain level of a 4 can inflame your fibromyalgia, which is mostly like nerve endings on high alert. So you can get all over pain, you get fibro flares, people talk about. So I need to keep pain levels lower and my shoulder. But my hip didn't like me yesterday either. My hip was like, wow, you have bent over 100 times today and picked things up off the floor. And you are, it wasn't hip pain, but it was muscular pain, right? Buttocks, groin, thigh, that was just like, you haven't used these muscles like this for a long time. So I'll just give you that heads up and we'll move right on, but we'll be doing that. I said to Russ, we're gonna have to hire someone for next year and the kids are gonna have to come help us take this stuff down because we put up more than we should have because he got motivated. He's like, well, I can bring up one more box. And I was like, sure, I love having it out. I love having it all out. But let us do the recipe of the week this week. I had a comment from someone who lives out in California who said, hey, you eat a lot differently than we eat out here. And I think that that is very true. I think people in the Midwest do eat differently than people in other areas. I think people who grew up with farm parents, people who grew up on farms, lived on farms, eat heartier meals, have bigger meals, learned that from their grandparents to their parents. But I just found it interesting. I do think it's also cultural. I think we eat differently at my house than someone who grew up in a different culture than I did. And they may never see a can of cream of anything soup, right? You may never ever buy that. But if you grew up in the Midwest, you know, hot dish is a thing. People would just put together whatever, all the leftovers they had and try to have some type of sauce on it, and it became a cream soup thing. So anyway, today's recipe is for chicken cobbler. I just had some leftover chicken, and I didn't want to make like chicken pot pie, which I have recipe for. So I just Googled chicken dishes, and yeah, and this one is just super simple, but it does have a can of cream chicken soup in it, which I didn't have, and you can make your own. 2 rotisserie chickens shredded, 2 cups of milk, 2 cups of the Cheddar Bay biscuit mix with seasoning. And I had that in my pantry, which is one of the reasons that I was Googling how to make something with that. And then it was a package of peas and carrots. So we had frozen peas and carrots in the freezer. I would have preferred to have fresh peas and carrots, but, and I had carrots, but not peas anyway. So, and then a can of cream of chicken. And you pour butter and cover the shredded chicken, and you spread the peas and carrots evenly, and then you mix the milk and the biscuit stuff together, put it over the top. You make it in a cast iron. So I thought that was fascinating that you put it on the top and you just cook it in a cast iron. And it was, I kind of halved the recipe, but put the extra biscuits on the side. So there you go. It was easy, it was quick, just comforting. We have had snow twice this week. So Tuesday we had a blizzard, a big snowstorm, hundreds of accidents around the metro as everyone learns how to drive in the snow again. We get really good at it, but the first snow of the season is horrific. No one remembers how to drive. And people with small cars realize that their tires are bald and that they need new tires because they're fishtailing all over the road. People with bigger cars, heavier cars, trucks, little SUVs, vans, or whatever, they don't tend to slide quite as much as those little cars. But you get behind a little car and they just can't go anywhere. So that was eye-opening. And then Thursday, we got Ross has had to shovel twice this week, and he got the snow blower out the first time. So we have, in my front yard right now, probably, I don't know, 6 inches of snow. It's piled up because when you shovel, I can see my front yard out this window. Someday I'll show you guys that view. It's not much, but I look that way all the time. So let's go on. The sweaters of the day, the shawl of the day. This is going to be an interesting one because this is the Coroman sweater by Irina Anikeeva, and that's Ermian Designs. I'll put it here. And for some reason, I follow her and I saw that she was having a sample sale. And I like to go over and see what people are selling and how much they're selling their samples for. And I went over and I looked at her sample sale, and she had some things. And so I purchased this sweater for my mom for Christmas because in the picture, it was blue. And my mom loves blue. And I thought, there's no way I would ever knit my mom an all over cabled sweater, I don't think, like that in this style. And I think she will really like it. And it came and it was gray. So, you don't know about the size because you're reading the size and looking at what size the model was on. And she's a designer, so this was something that she used in photography. And I think it was with, I want to say Brooklyn Tweed yarn, maybe. This is in Brooklyn Tweed Shelter. Brooklyn Tweed Tones, and it came out in 2022, and it was in the Gray Coast book. And I will put a picture in, but it's definitely blue in the picture. So then I got in touch with her because I was like, I'm not a fan of gray. And I thought my mom would wear gray, but I thought it was blue. I thought I was paying quite a bit for a beautiful cabled blue sweater. And she got back to me and she said that Brooklyn Tweed used a filter on the photo and that this was the only sample she had. And I said, but then you should have stated that in the description. And she offered for me to return it and get all of my money back. But then I kept looking at it, and my mom has gotten a little smaller on the top and a little shorter. And I just really think it will suit her and fit her well. And so before I shipped it off to my mom, I was like, well, I will talk about it on the podcast. So it's worsted weight yarn, 20 stitches and 28 rows on a US 7. It says save $1 when you purchase this pattern on brooklyntweed.com because they would prefer that you buy it there rather than on Ravelry. But they do, anything that you purchase, they also put in your Ravelry library. I think they just take less of a hit on their money. I don't know how they do that because that would be nice for me to be able to dump things that people buy on my website into their Ravelry library without going in and gifting everyone. But maybe that's what they're doing. As the cold wind bites from the crashing shoreline, pull close your Coroman cardigan for layers of woolen warmth that will stand all tempests. Awash in perfectly weighted cables, this cozy stable boasts insulating, overlapping fronts and a knitted belt to cinch against the chill. Coroman is an essential classic for any handmade wardrobe in tones or shelters entirely American wool. So yeah, it's a lovely sweater. I could still send it back. It's a drop sleeve, in the round sleeves, bottom up, seamed up the sides. There's video tutorial. It's considered a V-neck. It can be worn by a male or a female. That's it. So that's the Coroman sweater that I purchased on a sample sale. A lot of designers do have sample sales, and you can find their samples on their websites as they're selling things. So that's definitely a possibility if you're looking at someone's item and you're like, that's gorgeous, but I probably would never knit it. It might be a way for you to support the designer. She has a lot of hats for sale, and they're not inexpensive because you're paying for the yarn, like the wool, the pattern, the sample knit, right? But I think the hats were all somewhere between $28 and $50, I want to say. But lots of intricate cable work. That's kind of her aesthetic. So that is the sweater of the day. The shawl of the day this week is an old one that I missed. I had not talked about it. I didn't know. So for all you blue and purple lovers out there, this is the shawl for you. This is Pamuya, P-A-M-U-Y-A, Pamuya, I think. It is by Alexandra Wiedmayer. It came out in July of 2010, fingering weight, 29 stitches and 36 rows on a US 4. The pattern is available in English and German. Pamuya is Hopi, and it means water moon, and it takes 150 grams of any fingering weight 4-ply yarn. The shawl is worked from top to tip. Yeah. So you've got these little sections of yarn overs here in the variegated, and then you have some cross hatches and yarn overs in the purple, and then you have these wave drop stitches, and then the yarn overs, and then the cross hatches and the yarn overs and the wave. So very repetitive, but lots of texture and really pretty. Lots of options here. I don't think that the variegated yarn distracts too much from those sections, but a solid would certainly show it off more. It could also just be done in one color, and it would be lovely if you have 2 skeins of fingering weight that you're looking. It is kind of a giant triangle, but it is rounded at the bottom. So there's this little edge along the bottom and it's curved. It does not actually point. You've got this centered double yarn over and increase section down the front. So yeah, I knitted in maybe 2014, 2015, and I'm gonna let it hang down a little bit more so you can kind of see it. I don't have it tied around to the front, but yeah, that is the shawl of the week. You can go give that a little love out on Ravelry. I have finished objects this week. So someone asked me if they missed my finished objects, and I don't always show everything I buy, and I don't always show my knitting, like what I'm actually knitting on, until it's finished and gifted, because I spend a lot of time knitting samples and swatches for design work. So I don't even know that I had a section last week on finished objects, but I did finish a couple things. And so I thought I would share. So my first little Sophie scarf, and this is super popular right now. And it is got I-cord on either end and garter stitch in the middle. It was a bit of a learning curve for me on what I would do differently next time, because you're increasing every 8 rows going up, and then you get to the center section and then you decrease back down, so you knit from end to end. Super simple pattern, very easy, but where she puts the increases on the way up is not where she put the decreases on the way down. And I found that really interesting because it distorted a stitch on the way up, which was great because you could count how many rows you had done because you could see that distortion. But then on the way down, she moved it in one stitch, probably to hide the knit two together or whatever, or the slip slip knit. But I was like, I wonder if I moved it in, if that stitch wouldn't be distorted, if I would like it better. And then I thought also that I would want longer tails and not for it to get quite as wide. Now, I didn't block it out because I haven't decided if it's for me or not, but it's meant to be worn, you know, as an ascot just around your neck. And it is meant to be knit with fingering and mohair. So it is knit up to be DK weight. And this is sport, so it turned out a little smaller. So you can wear it like this, but if my ends were longer, I would bring it back around to the front, and tie it again right here, but I don't have, you know, long enough ends. So it would have turned out bigger if it wasn't sport weight, but I, you know, really wasn't sure. And then I thought it got a little wide for the neck, so I wouldn't go quite as many increases. But I cast on another one right away because I think my sister-in-law would like it. It can also be worn as a head scarf. You know, you can tie it in another thing, but you know what I mean, right? Like, I don't have long enough hair to pull that off, although I wear headbands at night all the time to wash my face, and then I just leave them on, keep my hair off my face. So yeah, it was a fun knit. She has now written this up as a shawl. So it is the Sophie shawl. It's just a giant version of it. So yeah, it was easy take with knitting. I've been knitting on it in the car when we've been driving places, and you know, that made it just so I think that will be a Christmas gift for a friend, someone who likes orange as much as I do. And then probably the bigger news, talk about burying the lead here as a former journalist. My sock pattern came out. So these are my Chim Chimney socks in the fingering weight, and these are my Chim Chimney socks in the DK weight. This sock blocker is not quite big enough for these bigger socks. They're supposed to be house socks, but I can get them on there a little better. And I sent out my newsletter yesterday, which included discount codes for everyone. So right now you can get this pattern on Ravelry, on Etsy, on Love Crafts, and on my website. On Etsy and my website, it's already discounted. It'll go up on Love Crafts later this week because they have an approval process. But on Ravelry, you can get both pairs, the set, the fingering weight and the DK weight, if you use the code HOLIDAY. And you can go to my Instagram, or you can go to the project pages on Ravelry, because I'm only sharing this with you guys. But I made sets on Ravelry again. So don't put one in your cart and then the other in your cart. Go to the set, and that's listed at the top of the page. And so you can get the 2 sock set for half price. So if you put them both in your cart, then you will get, you can buy them for $7. If you want all 3, the hat, the Chim Chimney hat, the socks, both pairs of socks, then you can get that for $9, so $3 a pattern. If you use the code SET, S-E-T, for the 3 pattern set. The hat is $1 off using code MARY. The newsletter was full of discount codes, and I put big buttons in the middle of the newsletter. So if you are on my website and you put your email in, you should have a newsletter from me. I only send them out when I have patterns to release, or I have some type of discount to share with you, like if I'm teaching and there's a discount code. But some of you never open it, or don't look at it, or delete it, or it might have gone to your junk mail. So you might want to check there, because then it makes it really easy to see what all the different options are for you to purchase. But on the set page on Ravelry, it tells you what the code is and how to use it. So I just put it right over on the left on the set page. I do think that they turned out really cute. This is not a color work pattern. This is actually a slip stitch pattern. You're slipping these little white stitches up. You wrap it around the needle twice, and then you slip it as you come around. And then on the last row, when you're gonna knit it in, you twist it so it's not loosey-goosey. And all of my testers said that once they got going, they knew exactly what they were supposed to do. Like it's easy, it's intuitive. No one had a problem with that. There were tons of problems with the heel. And that's because I wrote a band heel. And so the heel has this little band right here that comes down, and it's a shorter heel flap so that your gusset isn't as long, so you don't have as many decreases to do, so the sock goes faster. And some people like a really tall heel flap that comes up to like here, but this is just a shorter one, and you could make it longer, but see, this is the length of the heel flap before you start making the band. And then once you get the band made, you only have to do a few decreases on the gusset, and there's still quite a bit of room over the arch, except a traditional band heel, according to my tech editor, decreases all the stitches away. And so she said, I don't really think this is a traditional band heel. It's more like a Dutch heel. And I didn't think it was like a Dutch heel, because I've done a Dutch heel in a different pattern. So then I called it a modified band heel, because I don't want to get in trouble with anybody for not doing it right. Then you make an I-cord, and you just stitch on top, and you can just loop-de-loop this or hang it down, or you don't have to make it at all. And then you make little Christmas lights. And that's just a 3-stitch I-cord. It takes you about 30 seconds to make a light, but you do have to weave them in. The nice part is you can just run that right inside that I-cord. So people were like, oh my gosh, those lights are gonna take so many ends to weave in. You do have to weave them in, but you can slide them into the I-cord. Once you just pull it through to the back and tie it, you can just slide that into the I-cord. So that works pretty slick. I think these will make really cute house socks for someone. The Tuss Knitter, the Queenly Knitter, knit this as a Christmas stocking. So she cast on, I think, 64 stitches, which is the like medium or small fingering weight, and she did it in worsted or Aran weight. It turned out darling. She said she learned a lot. She wanted to swap out the heel on it because she thought it would look better on a stocking if it were a different kind of heel, and you could do the heel in a different color as well. You could do a white heel, you could do green. I had testers not do it in red and white. I had them do it in, someone did it in black and red, someone did it in gray and white, so there are lots of options for that. But anyway, go over and purchase my Chim Chimney socks or the set and support me a little bit before Christmas. I would love that. I used Sun Valley Fibers yarn for both of them. They sell a beautiful red. The colorways were Checkmate and Antler. I think that's what they're called. I should have that right, but I'm pretty sure that that's what they're called. So the two colorways, I got all my socks. I knit the larger DK socks, and I got those easily out of the two skeins, and I got the fingering weight with tons left over, and all my testers, no one ran out of yarn making all the different sizes. So there's a 8-inch, 9-inch, and 10-inch circumference, but you can use your standard cast on number. The number just needs to be divisible by 8, and then you can follow the pattern. It is a checklist pattern, so you can check off every row all the way through it. You can put your own heel on it. It's just a regular decreased toe. So pretty quick knit. If you like knitting socks and you've never tried a band heel, I would recommend giving it a try. One of my testers didn't read, because we were having trouble with the heel, because my tech editor made some changes because she thought I was trying to write the Dutch heel, and I didn't understand what she had said. It's neither here nor there. So someone did an actual slip one, knit one, slip one, knit one short heel flap, and the pattern does not call for that. It's just stockinette, but you could certainly put in a partridge, you know, any type of heel flap you want, and you could make it a little longer if you chose to. But this does make the sock a quicker knit. And for house socks, I think that it's fine if you're just doing, I think these would just be darling for family picture, right? Everybody sitting in front of the fireplace with their socks. So I'm hoping that for next year, people will, and I really did hope to have this pattern out in November, but with the hip replacement, I just didn't get it done, and I had done the collaboration already, so I really just wanted to get it out there for people. So thanks for the love on it. Many of you purchased the pattern yesterday when the newsletter went out. Some people saw it on Instagram. I got some fun feedback from people that they liked it, and so that always makes you feel good that you work hard on something and then people actually like it. What have I been watching? Shamefully, I have been watching Ink Master all the seasons. I have not one tattoo, but I can appreciate the beauty of some of those artists. It is incredible what they do with skin. And it's reality. It's a reality show. They start with 16 people. They narrow it down every week. The audience does get to vote in the end. I watched one of them when I was up late at night, and like I said, I like having something on in the background when I'm designing that I don't have to pay super close attention to, but I can just look up and look at these tattoos. They do bicker and fight though, amongst themselves, because they get angry when one of them beats someone else's tattoo and they get kicked off and things like that. But I'm just really enjoying it, and I think I'm on season 7, and I've just been letting it roll. I can fast forward through the intro and the beginning, so I think you can get to be about 5 or 6 minutes in before the actual show really starts, and then it's probably maybe a 35-minute program that you end up watching, and there are no commercials in it. I'm watching it on Paramount Plus. On my iPad, it just sits right there. That's all I'm watching. I don't know why it feels a little shameful that I'm watching people get tattooed. Like, well, there are body parts, I will say. People want tattoos, so sometimes you see body parts. Anyway, okay, I have a couple of tips and tricks this week. Let's share those coming up here. The first one is there is a new, not new, but fairly new to me sweater pattern out there, and it's called Learn to Knit a Men's Sweater. There's no date on it, but I had not seen it out there, and I asked Matt about it, and Matt said, yep, he had seen it. It's by Stacy Perry, who is Very Pink Knits, and it is worsted weight, US size 7, and it's kind of a Henley zipped front or button up the front, kind of a rib, looks like a 5x1 rib. And I thought, gosh, maybe there are some people that watch that would like to knit for their husbands, boyfriends, nephews, whatever. But there are probably some women that would wear this sweater. It's an $8 pattern. It has a pretty wide range, worsted weight, but I would assume that she has like a ton of video. Well, I know she has video tutorials, but a ton of support behind the pattern for you to go through. 244 people have made the pattern already. And so I just thought I would share it, because some of you might be looking for a way to knit a men's sweater. And then I have two little things that came across my desk. One is called Knitting Help, knittinghelp.com. Instructional videos on just about anything you could want to learn knitting wise. Seriously, I learn something new every time I visit. That was one. And the second one is called Knitting Fool, online stitch dictionary with hundreds of stitches, an awesome sweater generator, and lots of other amazing tools. And that's knittingfool.com. So if you're looking for a sweater generator, which they got popular for a while and then they kind of went away, you plug your numbers in, your measurements in, and it will figure out and generate a sweater for you to knit. You can put in V-neck, crew neck. There are a number of them out there. I tried using one from someone a while back and it worked okay. But I kind of know my numbers because I've knit enough sweaters now that I kind of know where I'm headed and what kind of fit I like. But so two websites that you may not know about, some of you may know. Some of you are far more knowledgeable about knitting and things that are going on in the knitting industry than I am. And then some of you don't follow anything. So I just try to hit the middle of the road. And some of you are like, well, I already knew that. And others of you are like, I'd never heard of that before. So there you go. I have a friend in my knitting group who came to knitting a couple weeks ago with this delightful scarf on. Her name is Mary, and she is a crocheter. So she's not a huge knitter. And so I would say she's beyond advanced beginner, but she just doesn't knit as much as she crochets. And here is a picture of her scarf. But those are slip stitches that run up and around. Then I asked her if I could take a close-up picture of the actual stitches there. And of course my printer toned it down, so it's much brighter in person. And then I said, what's the name of the pattern, Mary? And she said she couldn't remember, so she sent it to me when she got home, and I went over and looked at it. It's called Striped Delight, and it was a free pattern. And it's by margiesYarnCrafts.com out of Granby, Connecticut. Mary used Hobby Lobby I Love This Yarn in black and Candy Stick Stash. She knit hers in worsted weight. It was originally written for the gumball skeins from Knitted Wit, which were beautiful rainbow bright colored skeins of mini skeins, and they you use 275 to 300 yards. Mary had this yarn. She said someone had donated it, and so I think that she had this yarn, and she cast on 35 stitches on a size 8 needle, because when she cast on the number that they had in this pattern, it was 50, and she felt it was too wide. But the part that I liked the most about this is that it folded back around the neck and the stripes came through on the back side because the slip stitches were on the front. So when she puts her coat on, it's gonna look really nice underneath a coat. Yeah, so it's a free pattern. I will put all of her notes. I wrote them down on a little slip of scratch paper. That how many she cast on. She used a size 8, and then she had this worsted weight yarn. Because I thought that her colorway, her black with the rainbow, looked just like the picture on the Striped Delight that uses the knitted wit, which would be inordinately more expensive. And I don't even know if the knitted wit gumballs are even available anymore in all the places. Like, I've seen them at a couple places here in the Twin Cities in yarn stores. They're like little minis that are kind of twisted up. But I thought that that would be kind of fun to share. Then this book came out, the Safe at Home knitting book that looks like quilts. So I wanted to share that because I talked about it before. And you guys, she has one with dogs on it that I would really love to make. Not that I have the time nor the inclination right now, but I put this on my Christmas list. This was on the knitwit.org. It's Safe at Home by Margaret Holzman. I believe she's selling them, but I think you can also get it on Amazon. I hope that it's in some local yarn stores, so you could Google it and see if a yarn store is carrying it and buy it from the yarn store. But it had cats, it had dogs, it had houses, tons of little, everything looks, you know, like quilt blocks, the whole thing, but it's all knitting. Yeah, I thought it was so cool looking. So I wanted to reshare that. Then here's another sweater that's coming out soon. This is coming out by Jimmy Knits, Jimi. It's called Maxine the Mini, and I think we all need to be watching for it because it is so cute. It is a short sleeve sweater with long sleeved color work sleeves coming out underneath it to make it look like you're wearing a shirt underneath. Isn't that darling? Oh my goodness. I thought that was so cute. Maxine the Mini Cardi. The pattern writing is nearly done. Hope to put out test calls in the next few weeks. This came out a while ago. So I had this in my folder from two weeks ago maybe. But if some of you are testing knitters and you follow Jimmy Knits, maybe you could get on her testing call because that would be super cute. Maybe she's already done the testing call. Then I found this project. It's called Project Loose Ends. Have you guys heard of this? When a knitter, crocheter, or quilter dies mid-project or is no longer able to do handiwork due to disease or injury, they will likely leave behind unfinished items they were making for friends and family. These tangible, handmade expressions of love could get lost, donated away, or thrown out. We connect unfinished projects to volunteer finishers who complete and return the garments, blankets, and accessories to their intended recipients. Did you guys know about this? Need a project finish? Visit us online to find out if your project qualifies to be completed by a loose ends finisher. If it does, simply fill out the online form and you will match with a volunteer who has the skills and time to get the job done. If you have some time to give as a knitter, crocheter, or quilter, you understand that a handmade gift is priceless. The materials and hours that go into making something for a loved one are a gesture of love. Your efforts will reconnect a bereaved individual with a garment or accessory that was begun for them by a loved one who's died mid-project. I mean, Project Loose Ends. So I went over and looked it up, and it looks like most things would apply. It cannot be old, dirty, moth-eaten, moldy, smoky. Like, you know, like they have some parameters around what they're willing to send out to people. And then you can be a volunteer and you can turn it down or you can accept it. People can pay you, but it is done on a volunteer basis to start. And then people can make a decision on whether or not to reimburse you, or you can negotiate that as part of your working with them, apparently. I just thought it was amazing that that is happening, and I had no idea. My mother and I chose the yarn together and picked out the pattern. It was so special to receive the project she'd been making for me when she died. Even though she hadn't finished it, she touched it and she'd been making it for me. I'll cherish this forever. Right? Oh my goodness. So I do believe that sometimes the pattern is with the item and other times there is no pattern. And I mean, it's all, you know, you would get all kinds of different things. So, but if you're interested, it's Project Loose Ends. I thought that was the coolest thing. Then let's get in the Christmas spirit, shall we? Look at this cute card. Okay, everyone should pause me, go get some bulky yarn and a knitting needle and cast on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8 stitches or 16 stitches, knit 2 inches of ribbing and then decrease down in garter and put a pom-pom on it. It is the cutest card. It would make a great ornament. And you guys, you could have it done by the time the podcast is over today. Honest. And if you don't have any bulky, then hold 2 worsted together in a size 10 needle, right? And just cut out a piece of card stock or whatever. This was posted by Rubra Crafts. And I didn't look them up to see who they are, what they were. It was in a story, so I had to screenshot it. And then I just stuck it in the folder. So I will put their name on here. You can go look. Maybe they actually have a pattern for it. I thought that was really cute. I can look it up now. Why not, Cori? Just went over and looked. Rubra Crafts makes project bags. She has nothing on her site, on her scrolling down, that looks anything like this card. This was in her story today. It's Sunday. So there isn't anything. I think she probably just made it up. There you go. Okay, then I saw this gal, and she is Isla Sierra Co. It's an Etsy shop, and she is advertising writing people's names with wire and then knitting I-cord that slides over the wire to make the name that you hang on the wall. So this is what I'm talking about. There's the name Mila. She has bent wire that's just in one continuous, you know, line. And then she knits an I-cord, and on Instagram, I saw that she was sliding this I-cord onto the wire. So I went to her website to see, because I thought, gosh, you know, I could have I Rock Knits done, or one of the my niece's names. It looks to me like she was taking custom orders and she's booked till Christmas, but she had a basic guide to knitted wire art, a digital download for how to do it. Because we can all, and if you have an I-cord maker, an I-cord machine, like you could crank out I-cord, and if she shows you how to bend the wire and what the wire is and all that kind of stuff. So this digital download, the basic guide, was $18. And it looked like, to me, she was gonna open up more custom orders later in the month. So she's probably just covering herself as far as getting that kind of thing done. But I thought, what a cute idea for a baby. You could just write the word baby, shower gift, you know, birthday gift for grandchildren or children. Yeah, I thought, oh, people are so creative, just so creative. Then I saw this sweater that I'm gonna make next year for Christmas. So this is called the Christmas Influx sweater. I don't know why it's called Influx, but those are Christmas lights. So little lights above and below the line that you make in the sweater. And that one's cute, right? But this one is darling. So I don't know how you make it because I haven't bought the sweater yet, but the pattern. But look at how bright those are. I thought that was really cute. It's like they made them a little bit bigger, maybe, maybe not. Maybe it's just a wrapped stitch. Not sure. I'll have to look it up. But it's called Christmas Influx. It's by Andre and Perusa. There's a little umlaut over the E, so I don't know. But so cute. I don't have a knitted Christmas sweater, but I think I need one. I think I need to get myself a knitted Christmas sweater, right? I was on the Little Knits website. So that is a discount website for yarn. And so if you've never shopped on Little Knits, go there first, always. If you're online shopping and you can't support a local yarn store because you don't have one, or you can't find what you're looking for, and you need like standard yarn like Cascade, Noro, mohair, Little Knit sells it cheaper, but then they also sell it by the bag for like wholesale prices. But they had an email that said a lot of people don't know that when they buy from us, you can get a free gift. You can pick free gifts. And they had a whole section of free gifts on their website. So I clicked through the link because I'm like, what are they giving away for free? They're giving away yarn. They're giving away yarn that people aren't buying, right? So they're just dilling it out to people. They have, you know, stuff that is probably been sitting around for a while. Some of it was sparkly mohair, some of it was novelty yarn, some of it was regular yarn. There were all kinds of choices, and I've ordered from Little Knits before and I had no idea that they had that you could do that. So I thought, well, I'm passing that on to everybody because that seems like a good idea. Okay, now I thought I would share what I have got in my my Advent package, because sometimes it's really hard to know what Advent to buy because you're just not sure what you're gonna get. So this is my Advent. It's from Twice Sheared Sheep. I did not want a yarn Advent this year. I did not want minis because I've gotten them. I've gotten the Christmas one with the sock yarn, the German one and that was lovely, but I haven't knit with those skeins yet. And then I've gotten a fancy one, have not knit with those skeins yet. I've done a couple of Advent patterns. So I have knit up some of my patterns. So I did a Toad Hollow Advent, and I used some Knit Picks minis. I've done a Leading Man Fiber Hearts Advent. So if you're looking for projects for scrap yarn, but the inside of this is just lovely. Here are all the boxes that I get to open each day. And the first day, of course, is a big one. And I was just tickled. I was thrilled with what this was in here. I didn't know what I was getting for sure. It's mostly going to be stitch markers and things like that, right? But this is what I got the first day. It's Bella Angora. It's Angora. Oh, it's lovely. And that, I think, I'm going to weigh it, but I think that will maybe make a Sophie scarf. Wouldn't that be lovely? I don't know. Anyway, I'm going to try. I'm going to see how many yards I used on the little one I made. Then day 2, I got a little tin for stitch markers. You know stitch markers are coming because that's kind of the kind of company that they are. Day 3, I got a row counter. So you slide the ring over your needle, and then when you move up a row, you put the 2 on, and when you move up a row, you put the 3 on. And it's got the little raccoon there. So that's super cute. I didn't put that in the tin yet. And then today I got some beautiful gold and green stitch markers as well. So I'm gonna get quite a few stitch markers, I think. There's probably mini skeins. Then day 13 is a big box, and day 25 is a pretty big box. Well, actually all these over here are kind of bigger boxes, right? So they're gonna have some different stuff in them. But I thought, you know, not everyone can afford an Advent one. Not everyone knows what would come in an Advent. And once you've bought an Advent a couple of years, if you're not sure like what colors of yarn you're gonna get, you can get burned. Like if a person's palette is different than yours, or if they're thinking Christmas is different than you think Christmas colors are, or you don't want Christmas colors. So I thought, well, I'm gonna share the first few things I've opened so you can kind of get an idea of what goes on there. Okay, I made an error on the last podcast notes. it was correct on the screen, I believe, but I told you the story about Anna, who is housing the 3 kids from the Ukraine. And several of you said that you would donate to her and try to help her out. And then some of you sent packages to her of knitted items because she's gifting those Tuesday, to the Lutheran Social Services here in Minnesota, who's working with Ukraine refugees here in Minnesota. And she got a couple of your packages already and has thanked me for those. But when I typed up my show notes, when I put Anna's Venmo account, where if you have a Venmo and you want to send her a few dollars, I also have her address, so you can put like a gift card in the mail too if you want to ask me for her address. But I put Ann-Prisakari and it's Anna. And so someone got in touch and said, hey, it's missing an A. And I was like, oh my gosh. So if you went out and looked and couldn't find Ann-Prisakari, it's because I missed typing in the A. So I will put it down below here as well. But just so you know, I messed up in typing that, and I just wanted to make sure that everybody knew that I screwed it up. So somebody got new shoes and just had to show them to you guys. Because could they be any more Cori? No, they could not. And they're just fun. They're super fun. So ever since I had my foot surgery, I have trouble with that left foot. So a lot of you know that I have only been able to wear Birkenstock since then because I have very flat feet, and when they fixed my torn plantar, it made my foot more flat. And so I can have another surgery. They can put a plate on the top of my foot and fix it, or I can wear a heavy art support. I will do that. So I saw these shoes on Instagram and I clicked through, and it was right before Thanksgiving, like the day before Thanksgiving. And they're by Betsy Johnson, and they have them in tons of colors. So I'm gonna hold it up. You're not gonna see it very well, but I'll tell you. They have them in green, raspberry, pink floral, black, brown, gold, white, yellow, I mean, tons of colors. They were originally $89, but they were on sale. And so I highly discounted, and I was like, well, I have to have those. Well, then once you Google something on your phone, right? Or you go purchase something, you get it again and again. And I got another discount code, so I ordered the raspberry ones too. And they just came in the mail. I think I paid $39 for one pair and a little more for the other. But they make me so happy when I look down and they're not Birkenstocks. And that was my biggest fear. I was like reading, trying to see, and they have an arch. It's not a huge arch like a Birkenstock. It's not cork, but I could wear them. And I wore them around the house a little bit, and I was like, I can do this. There's enough arch support in them. So I wore them the other day, running around in the snow, which is ridiculous, but so fun. So I thought, okay, I'll share that with everyone. All right. The kids came for Thanksgiving. They came over on Friday. My daughter Kylie and her fiance Stevie. We had, small Thanksgiving dinner with the 4 of us at 1 o'clock. And then we watched the parade and the dog show because we had taped it from the day before. And then they had to leave because they were doing a Friendsgiving. So I was kind of bummed because I thought we would sit around and play games and stuff. But I asked them when they were here, because I'd asked them last year if they wanted Christmas stockings knitted by Mom. And they were like, no, we have little stockings, and you have a stocking here. So Stevie had a stocking. I didn't knit him a new one, but he had a stocking that kind of matched the rest of ours. And then this year I said, is there anything you want knit? And do you want stockings? And they said, yeah, we might do stockings now. And so I had them look on Ravelry. And so they sat on the iPad and scrolled through Ravelry while they were sitting on the couch. And this is the one that Kylie picked, and I'm just going to share it because I thought it was beautiful. It's called the Christmas Cardinal Stocking. It's really pretty. It kind of fits her aesthetic. It's just very kind of simple. And then Stevie picked a red and green one with a big white bear in the middle. And I was like, and Kylie was like, well, Mom can make them match. Mom can make them coordinate. And I was like, oh. But I do think I can take the chart of the white bear and put it right here and then make this part and this part kind of the same. And maybe I'll put the little cardinal off to the side on a branch or something. But I need to order yarn and get on that. I love knitting Christmas stuff. This whole thing is charted. It looks pretty simple. It's worsted weight. I think it'll work out pretty quickly, but I thought I would share that as well. So the other day, a friend and I went down to the new yarn store here in town. It is called Rose Yarn, and it is in Lakeville, if you are a Minneapolis person. So that is southeast of the Twin Cities, be south of the Mall of America. It took us about 40 minutes to drive from my friend's house in Chanhassen. For those of you that are local, that'll give you kind of a perspective. And I was like really impressed when we pulled up, because most yarn stores can't function, survive in like a high-end strip mall setting, right? Like, and we pulled up and this was seemed to me like a newer strip mall in a newer area, and her store was right in the middle. And I thought, wow, like that's impressive, right? That she's not in an older building or in a hidden behind something, right? Or in the back of a, you know, like yarn stores just have to, and it was lovely on the inside. They put in new laminate flooring, and there was a little fireplace up front in the wall, and 4 little beautiful little chairs and a rug. She's also selling some gifts. So someone asked me the other night what it was like, and I said, I don't want to be rude or I didn't know that if it would be worth the trip for someone yet. You know, when a new yarn store opens, they're not fully stocked, right? Well, what happened here is they've been open for 2 or 3 weeks, and they had a grand opening, and I think they got hit hard. And so they're restocking. And so they had gotten a new shipment of coconut and cashmere yarn out of Red Wing, Minnesota. She's an indie dyer. So they had a lot of cashmere, and those skeins were pricey. They had the Cocoa Knits accessory wall. They had a lot of Madeline Tosh, some Malabrigo. They had some Blue Sky up front and some Shabui, which is kind of pricey, right? But they also had gifts. So she had puzzles, she had local pottery, she had local chocolates, just a little section. But like if you went in with someone who wasn't a knitter, they could probably find some things. She had like some little note cards up front. So I bought a pom-pom and some stitch markers. My friend bought some yarn, so I got this pom-pom, which I thought looked just like me, like something I would love. So I bought that, which is interesting. And then I bought these stitch markers, which come from All Stitch Studio. And they're little flowers in kind of a gradient. And they had them in several colors. They had them in yellows and greens. And they're metal, just little metal stitch markers. So I thought those were kind of fun. Yeah, so I left without spending too much. But it was a lovely shop. I have a friend opening a shop in Sioux Falls, South Dakota too. She opened last Friday. It's called Prairie Road. And I just think when you open a yarn shop, you can't afford to financially go all in, right? And just buy everything from everyone. You kind of have to buy, see what sells, buy more, and see what your market's going to be like. And so I think those shops that start out, the same thing happened when we had a new shop down in Burnsville. We went down, and you can't expect all shops to be like fully stocked, bursting at the seams. This yarn shop had quite a bit of yarn. I mean, I'm not, it wasn't empty. I'm not saying it's empty. it just like their samples weren't up yet, and her mother was working there, and she's like, yeah, we got to get some samples. So I talked to her about that, and she's like, actually, we need some samples. We've just been working 14-hour days and have not had a chance to get them up. And so you know how they're getting it going. So if you're in the Lakeville area, definitely run over there because she's got some beautiful things. She's going to offer classes. She's going to have a couple teachers. So we went down, and that's what I purchased. I thought I would share that. And then on last Thursday night, I had talked about going to the Knitting Around Town that was sponsored by the Minnesota Knitters Guild. And I think there were about 7 or 8 of us at least that went from my 2 knitting groups that I know locally. And then there were several other people that came at the Eden Prairie Library. The vice president of the guild is the one who's kind of heading this whole thing up. Her name was Meg. She's lovely. And we had a really nice time. There was a young gal that came quite late that sat next to me. She was really nice. And then we met a gal from Minnetonka who didn't have a knitting group, and so we talked to her about knitting. And so yeah, it was a really lovely time. We had a very nice time. It was cold and snowy this week, and so you know, it gets dark at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Just kidding, but you know, so you don't want to go out, right? Like to go out at 5:30, sometimes it feels like, oh, it's in the dark and it's snowy and I'm here and I can put my pajamas on. But we went and it was a really lovely time. So they're going to do those all over the Twin Cities where they get together at different libraries and or different places. They already do a sip and knit a couple different places around town, and they have a Zoom night on Thursdays. Every other Thursday and Sunday, I think they do Zoom. Just open knit times. So the guild is, you know, trying to get things up and kind of going. So I wanted to share that. Let's quickly do the audiobooks because I think I read my best book of the year this year, maybe. So I read Remarkably Bright Creatures by Shelby Van Pelt. And it was a Read with Jenna book. Jenna Bushhager from Morning. I watch Hoda and Jenna in the morning sometimes at 10 o'clock. They come on from the Today Show. But this was a lovely story. So good. It says if you're a fan of a man called Uva, I would say there's a little bit of that tone. But a lot of people didn't like A Man Called Uva, and this was... I did, but this is just so good. It is about an octopus, so that turns you off to start. You're like, what? I'm going to read a story about an octopus. But after Tova Sullivan's husband died, she began working the night shift at the Sowell Bay Aquarium, mopping floors and tidying up. Keeping busy has always helped her cope, which she's been doing since her 18-year-old son, Eric, mysteriously vanished on a boat in Puget Sound over 30 years ago. Tova becomes acquainted with curmudgeonly Marcellus, a giant Pacific octopus living at the aquarium. And then she meets several other people. She has influence in life on some other people. There is a Knitwits group that she's a part of. The audiobook is 11 hours long. I read it in a couple of days. I just really liked it. There is a mystery, a bit of a mystery surrounding her son's death. She's going through a time in her life when she's transitioning and trying to figure out, like, if she should sell her home and move on or stay where she is, you know, like, it's gently written. Do you know what I mean? It was such a lovely story. If you read this book and don't love it, I will be really surprised. It was just, yeah, really a good book. Highly recommend. Then I read The Silent Patient, which I didn't love. It was okay. A lot of people have recommended it to me. It's a psychological thriller of a woman's act of violence against her husband and of the therapist obsessed with uncovering her motive. It is about mental health. It is about an asylum situation. The psychiatrist is obsessed with this woman, and he specifically goes to work at this place to figure out if he can work with her, to figure out why she would have shot her husband in the face. maybe it was coming off the gentle book into the, you know, really intense book. But I got to the end and I wasn't absolutely sure what happened. And then I had to go back and listen. And then I was like, okay, is that what happened? So then I Googled it and then I'm like, yep, that is what happened. Okay. And part of that is just not listening closely because I just wasn't, but it was good. It was good. If you like suspense and thrillers, definitely. So The Silent Patient by Alex Michaelides. And then the last one I read was Gang Leader for a Day, or listened to, by Sudhir Venkatesh. And this is an old book, and I'm not sure how I heard about it, why it got on my list, but it came up on my Libby, and I was like, well, okay. So in, I want to say like 2005? When did the book came out in 2008? Yep, so that's right. Okay, I just had to look. When Venkatesh walked into an abandoned building in one of Chicago's most notorious housing projects, he was looking for people to take a multiple choice survey on urban poverty. A first-year grad student, he would befriend a gang leader named JT and spend the better part of the next decade inside the projects under JT's protection, documenting what he saw there. So if you have an interest in gangs, poverty, why they happen, what they get out of them, how they work. I think things have changed some in the 10, 12 years since this was written and published, even more than that. But it was good. It was a good story. He did a nice job he wants to write his thesis on this, and then it's really hard to do because he doesn't have the same access to the same people all the time, but he spends a ton of time with them. And that's how this book came to be. So that was the third book that I read this week. It was good. How many hours? That one was 9 hours, and it was read by two guys who did a good job. That can make a huge difference in whether or not you enjoy a book, are the readers. So I would recommend that. Okay, let's do the giveaway. I have that skein of yarn and the yarn pin to go with it, and I did the random number generator, and it picked number 43, and I counted down 43 comments on the last podcast, and that is Ellen Jim Boss. So Ellen Boss, you are the winner. Please email me your first and last name and your address at irocknits@gmail.com, or you can go over to Ravelry to irocknits and just send me a message over there, and I will put that in the mail to you this week because you were the winner, the commenter. And this time I have some really pretty little earrings. So if you're a pierced earring wearer, I have multiple pairs of these. I really like them. They're super lightweight. They don't weigh anything. And they're yarn themed. So they're little felted wool tubes that have been cut so the insides show. I can't hold it up with my left hand. So there you go. You get both of them. They're just very pretty. And then I have this little stitch gauge counter. It's got the inches on it, and then you lay it on top and you can count. So I'm going to put those both in a little envelope together for next time. So please put the word earrings in your comment, because I do not want to count down and pick a winner if it's someone who does not wear earrings or does not want little belted wool earrings. Little pink skeins of yarn today. Probably not for everybody, but I thought they were really cute, and I have a bunch of pairs. I had them in a little package, so I took them out and set them on here for you to see. Okay. I think that's it. We are having tortellini soup for supper, so we need to get that done. Please go and look at the Chim Chimney sock pattern or the Chim Chimney hat on Ravelry, if you will. I would appreciate it very much. If you are on Instagram and you can reshare my posts, that is so helpful for more people to see it, I would really appreciate it. Just go over to my page and just click the little arrow underneath the picture and you can put it in your story like that. Testers, if you have not posted on Instagram yet and you're watching this, please post on Instagram and get the word out that the pattern is finally live. All right, come in for your hug. I hope that you're doing well. This is a hard time of year for some people, my father included. He struggles at the holidays. He grew up in with a dysfunctional father at the holidays, and it's hard for him still, all these years later. It's hard for him to be happy at Christmas time. It brings back lots of memories, and so I think that can be true for a lot of people. Or if you're alone, it can be hard. So please reach out to a friend or family member and let them know if you're feeling lonely or sad, or under the weather. Until next time, no green bananas. Waddle on. You'll never regret ripping back. Don't complain with your mouth full. Keep it colorful. Keep your fork by the gravy. Love you all. See you next time. Let every heart prepare him room, and heaven and nature sing, and heaven and nature have.